In days of iron and blood, when stone walls rose like mountains and kingdoms clashed not with whispers, but with war, one terrible beast roamed the fields. It bore no fangs nor flame, but it shattered towers like thunder from the gods. The Trebuchet, born not of sorcery, but of timber, rope, and the pull of the earth itself, it turned the tide of siege and despair alike. It needed no fire, no horses, no closeness, only distance and time. It did not knock it unmade. In this tale we shall walk the ramparts, feel the earth quake, and behold the slow dread of its swing. Like, subscribe, and strike the bell, for this story is not told in haste. It is carved into the stones of war and written in the hearts of men who stood before the Trebuchet and knew their end had begun. In the grim days of the old world, when kings ruled by sword and cross, and stone castles clawed at the sky, there came a wrath not borne on steeds, nor carried by knights. Nay, it rolled on wheels of burden, creaked beneath its own mighty frame, and stood tall with the patience of death itself. The Trebuchet, a harbinger not swift but sure, a herald not loud but final, it was no ornament of war. It bore no paint nor banner. It gleamed not with gold nor brass, but with timber soaked in toil and sinew of rope. Yet when it stood, men trembled, and when it swung, kingdoms fell. The Trebuchet was not made for show. It was made for ruin, in days when castles rose higher than hope, and men believed stone could keep fear at bay. The Trebuchet arrived to tell them otherwise. Walls, once thought eternal, cracked like clay beneath its wrath. Towers buckled, courtyards ran with dust and dread. To understand its might, ye must first know the world it walked. War was not glorious. It was slow, cold, and cruel. Armies camped for moons outside strongholds that laughed from behind high walls. Arrows flew, but stones stood firm. Rams knocked, but gates held fast. Ladders climbed, but fire rained down. So many battles were not fought, but starved. Men waited for the bellies inside the castle to grumble louder than courage. Then came the Trebuchet. It changed not the spirit of war, but the spine of it. Where once attackers feared the wall, now the wall feared the attacker. For the Trebuchet did not march forward, it reached out. Far beyond bow or bolt, it hurled boulders heavier than a horse with grace and fury. It struck not once, but again and again, like thunder remembering where to fall. Its arm, long as a tree, swung not with rage, but with reason, not wild, but wise. Its weight, held aloft with cunning, dropped with purpose. And when it fell, the arm rose, and with it the sling, and with it the stone, and then the breath of every soul behind the wall caught in their throat. A castle was no longer a sanctuary. Nay, it became a coffin with delayed lid. For the Trebuchet did not whisper threats, it showed them, one blow at a time, a rhythm of ruin, a drumbeat of doom, and what made it more fearsome was not its craft, but its simplicity, a frame of wood. A beam balanced, a pouch of leather, a weight, heavy as sin, suspended by rope. This was no marvel of the heavens. It was the wisdom of men who knew that what falls with force rises with vengeance, gravity. That was its fire, that was its storm. No alchemist brewed its power, no priest blessed it, no beast carried it. It needed no powder, no flame, no fuse. It needed only time, and time it had. The crew, hardened and grim, moved with purpose. Each man knew his mark, each rope its pull. Together they fed the machine like a hungry god, and it answered with ruin. A shot from the Trebuchet was not a single act. It was the beginning of undoing. And the stones it threw were not mere rock. They were omens. They were messages from death, written in dust and carried on the ark of despair. Walls crumbled not all at once, but in weeping cracks. First a chip, then a wound, then a hole wide enough to see sky where stone once stood. And always in the same place, again and again, until that part of the fortress sighed and fell like a tired giant. The defenders, once proud on high walls, became rats in their own maze. There was no safe place. For the trebuchet had eyes. It struck where the heart beat, where towers turned, where soldiers gathered, where command whispered hope, and then it struck again. But fear, fear was half the siege. When the trebuchet's frame was first raised, it was like the planting of a black tree. The defenders watched from above, knowing that each timber driven into the ground was a step closer to their end. The enemy did not run, did not shout. They built, calmly, quietly, with the patience of grave diggers. No storming of gates, no clash of swords, only the slow birth of doom, built in full view. It was this dread, this crawling sense of fate, that broke many before the first stone flew. When at last the counterweight lifted, heavy and resolute, there came a silence, a breath held by hundreds, then the swing, the whistle of air, the crash of stone, not on the wall, but in the soul, and it did not end there. Nay, the stones became fire, pitch and oil, flung in jars, bursting into flame upon the thatch within. Roofs ignited, smoke poured upward like cries to the sky. Still not enough, then the machine grew crueler still. It hurled filth, it hurled corpses, pestilence, plague, dead comrades, once brothers, now weapons, not for injury of flesh, but of mind. Morale crumbled faster than mortar, hope turned to rot, men began to doubt. Women wept, children clung to prayers that fled before them, and sometimes the gate was opened not because it failed, but because hearts failed first. Such was the power of the trebuchet. But behind this beast stood minds, not kings, not knights, but engineers, builders with eyes like hawks and hands like stone. They crafted not merely machines, but answers to riddles of weight and force. Each trebuchet was born not of haste, but of vision. Logs chosen not just for strength, but for honesty, no warp, no rot. Iron bound their joints, ropes of hemp or horsehair coiled in precise lengths. Counterweights, sometimes stones, sometimes lead, measured not in mass alone, but in consequence. They built it close to danger, within reach of enemy bolts, but they worked on, focused as monks, crafting a cathedral of destruction. To them, each trebuchet was not a weapon, it was a truth. That even walls built by kings, guarded by faith, fed by gold, would fall to balance patience and the simple swing of wood and stone. Some gave their machines names, the wolf's breath, sister sorrow, old thunder. They became more than timber, they became legends. And when two armies both had trebuchets, the field became a game of giants, stone against stone, machine against machine, back and forth, war not waged by blade but by bone, breaking will, and still the trebuchet endured. Even as cannons came, loud, violent, swift, the trebuchet held its ground. Cannons were costly, they failed, they misfired, they killed their own. The trebuchet, though slow, was faithful, built with what the land gave, repaired by hand, needing not powder, but purpose. For years it lived beside the thunder of guns, refusing to yield its throne. And when it died, it did not die in shame. It bowed to time, not defeat. The trebuchet was never dethroned. It was retired. With dignity, with scars, with legends behind it. In silence it had broken voices. In patience it had undone empires. In swing it had taught all men this: nothing made by man stands forever. And in the quiet fields where once it stood, the earth still remembers. Not in echoes, but in fear. Thus ends the tale of the trebuchet, the great unmaker of stone and spirit. Not with fire, not with speed, but with steady wrath, it turned fortresses to rubble and pride into dust. Aye, its voice was not thunder, but time, and time always wins. If this story stirred thy heart or opened thine eyes to the grim beauty of medieval warcraft, press thy favour upon the like, and let thy bell toll so thou art summoned when next we speak of old blood and iron. Subscribe if thou would walk again through shadowed pasts and learn how war shaped the world, not with blade alone, but with machines like this, born of earth and mind. Until next we meet, may thy walls hold fast, thy courage stand firm, and thy heart remember. The trebuchet waits not in haste, but in certainty. Go well, friend of war and wonder.